Okay, Pahrump, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's show, The Independent Doctors of Pahrump, and I'm your host, Dr. Michael Reiner. We have been talking in the first two segments about Ebola, and as a part of that disaster preparedness, because it would be a disaster of epic proportion. One of those things that I talked about being one of the possibilities of creating some type of horrible situation. And at the break, we were talking a little bit about, how we have, again, selected for this type of illness. And over time, we've learned to treat pneumonia. We've learned to treat a lot of diseases of the world that have allowed our population to live longer. Therefore, we've created a overpopulation, if you want it to exist. And so it's just a matter of time. It's like a forest. We allow the trees to clump and we protect them. And then sure enough, a natural disaster such as a firestorm or a lightning strike, something that we cannot avoid, happens, and the trees are so compacted together, we get this huge fire that burns. And a prime example of that was right here in this town several summers ago when we had that huge fire on Mount Charleston. So again, remember, this is time to take the time to look at preparing for disaster. Remember, chance favors the prepared mind, but also chance favors the prepared. You can't possibly predict every outcome, but storing up some food and water and a few basic essentials is never a bad thing. What's the worst that can happen? You decide to either give it away or you decide to use it. So either way, you have the benefit of maybe being able to take care of yourself during a disaster. Remember, the government is never really here for you. They're always here after the fact, and the government does only what's good for the government, not for the public. And remember that when you're out in the polls this year. I'm not trying to bring politics into medicine. Unfortunately, it's there. I saw something on the news the other day talked about Obamacare working very well. Well, yeah, it's true if you're a person who has never had insurance and you were able to get insurance, and it's a wonderful thing. But the number of doctors are retiring. The ability to get into a doctor is going to become harder and harder. People are going to use this system, and if reimbursement declines, then you can make sure that nobody has forced the doctors to take patients, and you may find again that your insurance, even though you have it, it may not be as accessible as you think. So therefore, you're going to do what we're trying to avoid, which is using the most expensive point of service, which is the hospital, for all of your care, and the hospitals will be overwhelmed and never be able to provide you care. So the onus is still on you as the individual to take care of yourself and to do the right thing when no one is looking. And speaking of that, this is the time of the year, and I said we would go into that after the break. This is the time of the year what's called open enrollment. Open enrollment is really for the Medicare population. In the past few years, there were billboards everywhere and people running up and down the street with these cars, telling you to sign up with, Southwest Medical or sign up with Humana. Thank you for keeping your doctor. All too well, we saw the multitude of media and advertising talking about, changing to this insurance and keeping your doctor and things of that nature. That's why I'm independent. I broke away from the corporate medicine model. That's just unfortunately one of the areas where Obamacare kind of breeds into that, because one of the things insurance companies have known for years is that not everybody gets sick on the same day. Not everybody goes to the bank to take their money out on the same day. If they did, there would be pure havoc and pandemonium and chaos. So with that being said, the models of insurance companies that have existed today are based on risk sharing or risk sharing the risks, so to say. And what you will see in the future is that companies being paid money to manage your health care, not treat your health care, but manage your health care. And that's the only way the system can work in the future to take care of the large number of patients that are out there. If I had to treat every patient for everything on a daily basis, that becomes cumbersome. But if I basically am doing a good care or doing a good job of educating my patients and doing things, then I will be rewarded because my patients are healthier, and therefore they use the system less. But in the real the real rubber, where the rubber meets the road, is that the government has known for years that 90% of your healthcare dollars are spent in the last 90 days of your life. What does that mean in the interim? Well, you kind of can figure it out. I mean, a health insurance policy is one of those things you pay in insurance. You're paying something and you think all of a sudden it's like, because I paid my premiums, I should be entitled to this. Well, that is definitely not the case. Insurance companies are in the business not to pay claims. They're in the business to collect premiums. And this is where the fallacy of I have insurance and discharge it to the insurance company. The system overall would be much better if patients were responsible for their own health care and paying their own bills, and in the end they would be the healthcare system and the patients would be much better off, because they would be responsible for themselves. If you wanted to drink and smoke and not take care of yourself, then you would not have the money to take care of your lung disease, and therefore the end result is you bear the consequences of your behavior. Today's current healthcare system doesn't really burden the person with the consequences of their healthcare system. It seems like it's always available. I want to drink and smoke and get pneumonia. Well, then I'll just go to the hospital and they'll give me antibiotics and they'll put me on oxygen and they'll get me better, and then I'll feel good, and then I'll go back out and do that same bad behavior again, only to find myself back in the ER again. And that's what the system cannot maintain. So during the open enrollment period, this is the time for the Medicare population to decide what they want to do. Where do they want to belong, if they want to belong to anything? This open enrollment period came about because there were Medicare HMOs, such as Senior Dimensions and other Secure Horizons and things of that nature. But what would happen is you would join the HMO because they could take care of your prescriptions and your co-pays and things of that nature. But then if you wanted to see a specialist, you would just disenroll from the HMO and go get your surgery from that specialist and re-enroll in the HMO. And Medicare saw people using the system to their advantage rather than the other way around. They were getting so-called double billed. So then they basically created a situation where you became locked into a system, meaning when you joined Senior Dimensions, you basically were locked into that situation until the open enrollment period started, which was a 2-month period, and then you could switch out of Senior Dimensions and go back into straight Medicare with the supplement, or you could go back into switch to Secure Horizons if you moved to another area, or Healthcare Partners, or Humana, or any one of those Medicare HMOs, and vice versa. And so it really becomes a personal choice, and a lot of the media blitz was geared into, keeping your doctor. Well, that's true. If your doctor became bought out by an insurance company, were you really keeping your doctor? Well, yes, you were, but that doctor was now being controlled by an insurance company. And I saw that coming, and I didn't like the way that they controlled the way I would have to practice medicine. And I have some diagrams that we're going to go over after the break to kind of explain to you what's behind the smoke and the mirrors of Healthcare Partners or Senior Dimensions and things of that nature. So well, with that being said, there's so many different choices, and when I sit down with patients and I explain to them what their choices are, it suddenly becomes apparent. And each one of those plans offers something different and a little twist, but they're really governed by Medicare. There really isn't too much that they can do outside of what Medicare tells them to do. And the way these whole systems work is if you belong to an HMO, Medicare pays the HMO so much money a month to take care of you. That's what they call risk share. I mean, Medicare does not get a bill when you go to the hospital. And Medicare pays that insurance company or that agency to manage your health. And they do that in several different models. And I'll try and show you some diagrams after the break on how that all works. So remember, if you're a member of an HMO, you're locked into that HMO for a year, and it reminds me of that, what was that movie, The Holy Grail, which is it's time to choose wisely, and if you choose poorly, then you are locked into that situation. So with that, I will say hang in there for just another minute. When I come back, we are going to go into the diagrams, and we'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in.